Hello everyone and welcome to Mythic Tyrant Velhari. This fight is either a hate it or love it for healers because of the way the Phase 2 and Phase 3 health debuff works, and unfortunately as Discipline Priests we're more on the hate it side, but let's look at some things that I recommend doing to make the fight go a little bit more smoothly, starting with your talents. Spectral Guise can be used here to drop the Annihilating Strike in Phase 1. However, I would actually not recommend this. First of all, the tanks can taunt it away and nobody will take damage. And second of all, even if people do take damage, it shouldn't kill anyone once you've actually learned Phase 1 as a raid. If you have to take Spectral Guise to learn Phase 1 at the beginning of your progression, then so be it, but when you're closing in on a kill, I feel like a free personal heal in Desperate Prayer is much more beneficial than negating a Phase 1 Annihilating Strike that wouldn't even kill anyone if it hits. In the second talent tier, we're going to get a little bit crazy and we're going to select Phantasm. Phantasm is the only spell in the game that I know of that removes the slow from Edict of Condemnation when it's used. And that's extraordinarily useful. You also won't need any feather or body and soul speed increases due to the required movements of the fight, so Phantasm is a clear winner in this talent tier. Our last two talent changes are Divine Star and Clarity of Will. There's just not much to say about these two, they're just flat out better choices for killing the boss and raid healing usefulness. So in Phase 1, we're going to heal like it's a normal fight. Pretend like it's any other fight. You're going to blanket shield with Archangel for the Infernal Tempests and the Edicts. Make sure to penance the Touch of Harm target. Use your Empowered Prayer of Healing when you have it, and so on and so forth. I've heard of some people putting a Clarity on the Touch of Harm target, but to me that's a little bit overkill. A Penance and a Power Word Shield, both used on cooldown, both on the Touch of Harm target, is more than enough to take care of that debuff. One tip I can give you in Phase 1 for Infernal Tempest is to delay your Archangel on the pull by like 10 seconds and you'll have it line up for the first Tempest. If you use Archangel as soon as you get it on the pull, then you're really not going to be healing anything, and when the first Tempest comes around, you're going to be outside of your Archangel, so try to avoid that. Right, so now in Phase 2, it's going to get a little bit ugly. As your health drops lower and lower, you're going to want to focus the tanks more and more. The tanks take reduced healing and reduced shielding in this phase, so your numbers are going to be really ugly, but in my opinion, it's totally worth it. You have to have some amount of trust in your raid mates to do the font stacking correctly, to do the throughput AoE healing correctly, and to handle the edicts correctly. But when all of that finally comes together and you get a clean pull, the only real way to wipe in this fight is to a tank death, and those are very frequent. So I feel like my job on this fight is to keep the tanks up at all costs. The way I do this is to just alternate Clarity casts and Power Word Shields between the two of them, throw your Empowered Prayers on the tank group, and direct penance heal them for throughput when they need it. Literally every heal you have should be going on the tanks or the tank group in this phase. When you're stable, you can obviously help out Touch of Harm a little bit and font targets if they desperately need it, but for the most part, the Discipline Priest carries the tank HP and your other healers carry the raid healing. Unfortunately for us, this really awful style of healing will continue into Phase 3 and pretty much all the way until the boss dies. If someone is particularly low in Phase 3, you can start to get a little bit more liberal about raid shielding as the fight goes on and as your HP gets higher. But always come back to the tanks. I've had so many wipes to tank deaths in Phase 3 because they didn't have a Clarity, and it just feels awful knowing that I could have saved the tank if I would have just let one DPS die. So these are all the tips I have for you on Tyrant. I will note that I used the Tier 17 two-piece in the video because I spend so much time casting Clarity that I find it's hard to find time for evangelism. So getting an evangelism stack from a penance is really useful to me. I've also used the class trinket on this fight. It's the only fight that I would even consider it on. You can keep the buff applied to your tanks very regularly, and it just might make the difference in a tank death if you still need more tank healing. So here, closing out the video in phase 3, at the beginning of the phase your health will be as low as it's going to get the entire fight. So the end of phase 2, start of phase 3 is really crunch time for your tank healing. I give you full permission at this point in the fight to put your blinders on, tunnel vision absorbs onto your tanks, and really keep their health as high as you can with your shields. At this point in the fight you should be suiciding all of the edicts, so here again there's not really much of a reason to blanket shield when the tanks can be claritied. I'm not sure if that's a real word, but I used it anyways. If you do actually need to raid shield in phase 3, the dangerous mechanic that you will want to be pre-shielding for is the Gavel of the Tyrant, so keep that in mind, keep your tank shields up, and we'll see you upstairs on Manaroth's platform, where we'll be fighting for the right to face Archimonde.